Hey there, survivor. If you can hear this, it means you're still alive. This is Jack's Nightmares, and wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you made it. Now get comfortable. This is your next story. The county radio on my kitchen counter won't shut up, but it isn't giving clean information either. It's bursts of voices, clipped words, then static. I keep the volume low and lean in close so it doesn't spill out the open window. The microwave clock reads 7:31 in the morning. I write 7:31 on an envelope with a pen that barely works. Then I set the pen down and keep my hands busy so I don't stand there staring at the radio. I walk to the front window and lift the corner of the blind with 2 fingers. Cars are moving past my place faster than normal. A pickup stops at the intersection and blocks it for a few seconds. The driver points down the street, then waves someone through. Nobody honks. A sedan behind him throws it in reverse, backs up hard, and turns around in the middle of the road. Tires squeal. The sedan disappears the way it came. My phone won't load anything. It shows 1 bar, then none. Then it spins. I set it face down on the counter so I stop checking it every 10 seconds. I pull on my work pants and boots, grab my tool bag from the garage, and check my van shelves the way I always do. Drill, bits, screws, ratchet straps, flat bar, small sledge, headlamp, gloves, jump pack. The jump pack lights show 2 out of 4. I toss the charger cable onto the passenger seat. I pull the paper county map out of the glove box and lay it on the dash. A text finally pushes through from Wade Larkin, the dispatcher I know from back when we both lived in the same trailer park. It's short. Stay off Route 9. Ambulance hit near Hillcrest. People biting. Not a joke. I read it twice, then I lock my phone screen and put it in my pocket. I don't answer. If the network is choking, my reply is a coin flip, and I'm not burning battery on a coin flip. I back the van out slow and keep the cab quiet. No radio, no calls. The first gas station I pass is packed. 2 cars are wedged at pumps with doors open. A man in a hoodie is pounding on the glass at the cashier window. Another man stands by the air pump with a tire iron held low, turning his head fast from car to car. I keep rolling. I don't turn in. I don't make eye contact. At the next intersection, a sheriff's cruiser sits sideways with lights off. 2 deputies are in the road waving traffic to the shoulder. I ease by at a crawl with both hands on the wheel. One deputy has a face that looks worn out already, and his eyes keep scanning the line behind me instead of looking at me. Nobody is acting normal, and nobody is acting organized either. A mile later, there's a wreck half in the ditch. Driver door open. A man in a stained white shirt sits on the gravel with his back against the guardrail. He isn't calling for help. He keeps snapping his head toward passing vehicles, hands wet and dark, rubbing his palms on his jeans over and over. I don't stop. I don't slow enough to invite him to walk toward my van. The weather station sits out on the ridge west of town, up a service road the county used to keep plowed when people staffed the site. Now it's mothballed. The building is still there. The instrument pad is still fenced. The mast is still up. The county stopped paying for regular staffing 2 years ago, moved everything onto state feeds, and left this place locked and forgotten. I serviced it once during the last round of shutdown work, so I know the layout and the road. I also know there aren't crowds up there. Crowds are what I'm trying to avoid. I turn onto the gravel road and my tires throw stones. Trees close in, and my phone drops to no service. I keep my speed low and steady, watching for fresh tracks, watching the ditch line, listening for anything that doesn't belong out here. The van rattles from the washboard, and the tools clink in the back, and I don't like that sound, but I can't stop it without unloading half my shelves. Halfway up, I pass the old pull-off where somebody dumped a couch last year. The couch is still there, soaked and sagging. Fresh tire tracks cut through the mud beside it. A plastic grocery bag is snagged on a branch and flaps. I don't stop. I don't get out. I keep driving. Near the top, a pickup is parked sideways across the road. Driver door open. No one in the seat. I brake and stop well short of it. I take my keys out and put them in my pocket before I open my door. I step out and close the door without slamming it. I keep my tool bag in the van. I don't carry extra weight until I know I'm not walking into something I can't back out of. I walk forward a few steps and look at the pickup from a distance. County sticker on the back window. Salt buckets and a snow shovel in the bed. keys hanging in the ignition. There's a smear on the gravel by the driver door that looks fresh and dark. I don't touch it. I don't lean into the cab. I take one step back. Something moves in the trees downhill. It isn't a clean footstep. It's brush shifting, leaves dragged. I freeze and listen. Then a man comes out between two pines, jacket unzipped, hands bare. His mouth is open and he's making a broken sound that isn't a word. His eyes aren't scanning the woods or the road. He's locked on my chest. I don't talk to him. I don't ask what's going on. I back up toward my van and put the hood between us. The man keeps walking toward me, uneven, stumbling on the slope and catching himself. He doesn't sprint. He doesn't stop either. I get into my van, shut the door, and lock it. I start the engine. The man reaches my front bumper and puts both hands on it, pushing as if he expects the van to move for him. His fingers slide on the paint. He makes that same broken sound again. Then his head snaps toward the open pickup behind me, and he turns his shoulders as if something there pulled him. I reverse slow, swing wide around the pickup, and keep going uphill. The man turns and follows, slow and direct, dragging one foot a little on the gravel. I don't stop to watch what he does next. I don't need extra proof. The last stretch is exposed and windy. Gusts hit the van broadside. The station comes into view, chain link fence around a gravel pad, a small building with a metal door and two narrow windows, and a mast with instruments above it. No vehicles inside the fence. Nothing looks freshly torn up from where I'm sitting. I park angled to leave fast. I keep the engine running for a moment while I listen. No voices, no engines nearby. I shut it off and step out. The gate is locked with a padlock that is not the one I remember. My old key won't fit. I set my tool bag down, grab the bolt cutters, and line the jaws up on the lock. The lock is thick. I have to brace my knee against the gate and squeeze until my hands start slipping on the grips. The lock finally snaps with a sharp crack that echoes across the ridge. I stop moving right away and listen. The wind eats the sound fast. I wait anyway. I open the gate just enough to slip through. Then I close it behind me and hook the chain back so it looks shut from the road. I walk to the building door. The handle doesn't turn. The lockbox beside it is the same model as before, but the code sticker is peeled off. I try the old code anyway. It fails. I try it again. Same result. I check the hinges and the frame. This building was built to keep weather out, not to stop a contractor with tools. I slide my flat bar into the latch gap and pry. The door flexes. I pry again. The latch pops with a dull clunk and the door opens a few inches. Inside, the air is stale and cold. Small room, workbench, metal cabinet, radio rack dark, an office chair tipped over, a calendar on the wall stuck on a month from 2 years ago. I shut the door behind me and throw the deadbolt. I don't sit down. I walk the room and check everything, fast and quiet. The cabinet is locked. The key is taped inside a drawer where someone expected it to be found. Inside the cabinet, a first aid kit, a few emergency blankets, 2 ration bars past date, a coil of rope, a small propane heater, and 1 propane bottle that feels half full. No stacks of food, no magical cash. I shut the cabinet and lock it again. I check the breaker panel and flip the main. Nothing comes alive. I open the battery compartment under the radio rack. 2 sealed batteries. Old, and one has a service sticker from 3 years back. I touch my meter to the terminals and get nothing worth using. I look out through the narrow window without pressing my face to the glass. Town sits in the distance. A thin column of smoke rises near the industrial area. A siren wails far off, then stops hard. The service road below is empty in this moment. That can change fast. I start making the building harder to enter without turning it into a loud construction site. I find a length of pipe and wedge it across the inside handle as a brace. I add a metal hasp and sink long screws into the frame where I can catch wood, not thin metal. I test it with a shoulder push. It holds. One window has a hairline crack in the corner. I cut plywood down with a handsaw and screw it over the window from inside, leaving a narrow slit so I can still see out. I keep my saw strokes slow and controlled, and I stop twice to listen before I finish. I lay my supplies on the bench and count them. 6 bottles of water, 2 cans of beans, 1 can of tuna, 4 granola bars, a small jar of peanut butter and a bag of trail mix. I line them up. Then I write a ration plan on the envelope in plain words. 2 small meals per day. Water measured. No waste. I don't pretend this turns into comfort. I pick the back alcove for sleep. It's lower, less visible from windows, and it keeps my movement away from the door. I lay my sleeping bag out, set my flashlight and knife within reach. Then I turn off my headlamp and stand in the dark to check light leaks. The window slit leaks a little. The door seams leak a little. I decide the phone stays off unless I'm crouched in the alcove. An engine sound drifts up from below, then fades with the wind. I look through the slit. A dark SUV crawls uphill with headlights off. It stops near the bend where the county pickup was earlier. 2 shapes get out. One points uphill. The SUV backs up and turns around, then drops downhill with lights still off. I take the broken lock and bolt cutter handles and stash them outside the building under loose gravel near a footing. I don't want obvious tools sitting around. Then I go back inside, check my brace again, and sit on the floor with my back to the wall. I keep watching town until the sun drops and shadows swallow the road. A thump hits the gate. Metal rattles. I don't move toward the window. Another thump. Then scraping along the fence, slow and uneven. The scraping stops near the building. The door handle jiggles once from outside, then snaps back when the brace holds. The handle jiggles again, slower. Something bumps the door with a shoulder or head, not hard enough to bend it, hard enough to make the brace creak. It happens twice more, then the scraping drifts away across the gravel. I stay in the alcove through the night, boots on, gear packed tight. Far down the road I hear a shout and another voice answering it, then silence. I don't sleep. I don't turn on lights. I keep my hands on my gear and keep listening. At first light, I look through the slit. 2 bodies are pressed against the fence near the gate. Both are moving in short, restless shifts. One keeps pushing face first into the chain link, then stopping, then pushing again. The other is on the ground trying to stand, failing, trying again. Neither one looks up toward the building. Both keep reacting to movement that isn't there. I step back and spread the county map on the bench. I trace the nearest spots I can reach without driving into the center of town. The county salt shed, the maintenance yard, the fire access pull-off near Miller Creek. I write a short list under the timestamp. No lights at night, no generator unless needed. Gate stays shut, road watched. My phone buzzes once, then goes quiet. Another text from Wade pushes through. Hillcrest gone, hospital locked down. Don't come into town. I read it and set the phone down. I don't answer. I pack my tool bag again and check my van keys. Then I stand at the door with my hand on the brace and wait for the fence scraping to drift away from the building. When the scraping shifts back toward the gate, I slide the brace off, crack the door open, and step out into the fenced yard. The 2 figures at the gate turn their heads toward me at the same time. One opens his mouth and makes the same broken sound I heard near the pickup. Both start pulling toward my movement. I walk backward, step inside, shut the door, and lock it again. I keep the propane heater in the cabinet and leave it there. Heat is for water later, not comfort right now. I line the water bottles up again and mark one cap with a scratch so I know which bottle I opened last. Then I pull my meter out and move back to the radio rack. I need outside information, even if it's messy, and I need enough power to charge at least 1 battery. The antenna line runs through a wall port and up the mast. I open the port cover and find chew marks on the cable jacket, plus a small section of exposed braid. I cut the damaged section out, strip the ends, and twist a temporary splice using a connector from my kit. I tape it tight, then tape it again. It's a patch, not a rebuild, and I treat it that way. The radio stays dark without power. The station has a generator shed out back, inside the fence. I know the generator is there from the last time I worked this site. The problem is noise. A generator carries across a ridge, and I already saw at least 1 vehicle creeping around with headlights off. I stand by the window slit and watch the road while I think through a trade I can live with. A new engine sound comes uphill late morning, then stops outside the fence. I look through the slit. A sedan is parked crooked at the bend. A woman steps out first and puts both hands up high. A man gets out of the passenger side and does the same. Neither one comes running to the gate. Neither one is waving arms or yelling. That helps. I don't open the door. I don't wave. I watch their hands and how they move their feet. The woman points at the sedan, then points at the station, then holds her palm out in a steady motion. The man pulls a white cloth from somewhere and lifts it shoulder high. The request is obvious. Entry or help both. I grab a clipboard and write in big letters, "Stay back, no gate, go downhill." I hold it at the slit for a few seconds and pull it back. The woman reads it and drops her arms. The man steps toward the gate anyway, slow, palms out. One of the fence bodies jerks toward him and pushes hard into the chain link. The man stops. The woman grabs his sleeve and yanks him back toward the sedan. He resists for a second, then he goes with her. She pops the trunk and pulls out a red fuel can, holds it up, then points at her mouth and tips her head back. Water for fuel, clean trade. I can work with that if I control distance. I don't have spare water. I have enough water to keep moving for a short window, and that's it. I take one empty bottle, rinse it with a small splash, then fill it halfway from a full bottle and cap it tight. I mark the cap with a second scratch so I remember what I did. I tie the bottle to a rope from the cabinet and coil the rope in my hand. I open the building door and step into the fenced yard with the rope and bottle. I stay far from the gate. The fence bodies turn toward me and start scraping and pushing again. I walk the inside fence line to the side corner, where I can throw the rope without going near their hands. I toss the rope over the fence and let the bottle land on gravel outside. The woman starts forward, then stops when the fence body shifts toward the sound. The man moves quicker, grabs the bottle, and backs to the sedan. He hands it to the woman and keeps his eyes down the road more than he looks at the station. The woman drinks too fast and coughs, then caps the bottle. She holds the fuel can up again, sets it on the ground, and nudges it forward with her foot. She backs away and raises her hands again. She's trying to keep this quiet. That counts. I don't open the gate. I take my bolt cutters from the spot I stashed them earlier and go to the far fence corner, away from the gate. I cut the tie wire and pull the chain link away from the post enough to make a narrow gap. Metal scrapes. The fence bodies react and drag along the fence line toward the sound. I keep my hands moving fast and keep my body out of reach. I hook the fuel can handle with the rope and drag it inch by inch through the gap. My pliers clack against metal once when my grip slips, and both fence bodies slam into the chain link in a short rush. I pull the can inside, shove the chain link back, and twist fresh tie wire tight with my pliers until it holds. Then I back away and get inside the building and lock it again. The sedan leaves without headlights, rolling downhill slow. The woman points toward the station once before she goes. Then she climbs in and shuts the door. The man gets in fast and keeps looking behind them. They disappear into the trees. I wipe the fuel can handle with soapy water and a rag, then bag the rag separate. Soap and water is what I have. I don't treat anything as clean without doing something about it. Then I take the can to the back of the building and set it near the generator shed. I unlock the generator shed, check the oil, tap dust out of the air filter, then pour fuel into the tank slow and controlled. I run an extension cord into the building, set the breaker panel to generator input, and check the switches twice. I pull the starter cord. It takes 3 pulls, then it catches and settles into a steady rumble that I can feel through the floor. Inside, an indicator light on the radio rack flickers on. I clamp the charger to the least dead battery and turn the radio on. I scan until I catch a clearer channel. A woman's voice keeps repeating a warning about blocked roads and people being pulled out of cars. The voice doesn't sound official, it sounds tired and focused. I write the frequency down in words on the envelope, then I shut the generator down after a short charge window and let silence return. By afternoon, smoke smell is stronger. I watch town through binoculars and see more dark patches than lit ones. Cars are jammed on the main road out. Some doors are open. Small figures drift between cars and stop, then drift again. I keep the generator off and start planning water. The station doesn't have a working well, and the old catchment barrel downhill might be trash. Miller Creek is better if I can reach it without stepping into people. Before sunset, I pack light for a short run on foot. 2 empty bottles, flashlight, knife, pry bar, a handful of screws, and flagging tape torn into short pieces. I keep the building door braced behind me. slip out through the fence corner gap, and head downhill on a deer path instead of taking my van. The van makes noise I can't take back. At the bend where the county pickup was earlier, the pickup is gone. Fresh tracks cut the gravel. A deep scrape line runs off the shoulder as if something heavy was dragged. I don't stand there long. I move into the trees and keep going. At Miller Creek, I stop behind a rock and watch the bank for a full minute before I step closer. No movement besides water. No voices. No engines. I fill both bottles, cap them, and shoulder my pack. I don't drink there. I turn back uphill right away. On the way up, I hear shouting down the service road. A man yells, "Open the door, I got hurt." Another voice answers, "Stay back." Then there's a scuffle sound on gravel, and the first voice turns into that broken noise again. I stop behind a tree and watch through branches. A man in a brown jacket staggers into view with one hand clamped on his forearm. Blood is visible. He drops to one knee and tries to stand again. Another man stands 10 feet behind him, hands out, backing away with eyes locked on the injured man. The second man turns and runs downhill. The injured man rocks forward onto his hands and knees and starts making the broken sound louder. I don't go near either of them. I back off into the tree line and take a different path uphill, staying off the road. A minute later, a distant broken sound answers from farther down. Then another. Those sounds pull more of them in. I slip back through my fence gap, twist the wire closed, and get inside the building. I lock, brace, and set the 2 water bottles on the bench. Then I write 2 lines on the notepad. Noise gathers them. Injury turns fast. I take a small drink and set the bottle down. No more. That night I keep the generator off. I eat a small amount, keep my light low, and listen. More dragging steps drift up the road. More broken sounds answer from below. By midnight, headlights flash far down the ridge, then cut off. A vehicle idles somewhere, and voices carry up in short bursts. I keep quiet in the crawl space with my boots on and my gear packed. A calm voice calls from outside the fence near morning. "Hello, we want to talk." The voice is controlled and steady. I don't answer. A flashlight beam sweeps the fence line and slides across the building wall, pauses on the plywood, then moves on. More beams join it. 3 lights. Maybe more. The calm voice comes again, closer. "Open up. We can keep this place." I don't move toward the window. I write on the clipboard in the dark. "Go. No entry." I hold it at the slit for 2 seconds and pull it back. A woman outside laughs once. A man says, "He's inside." Another says, "Wait him out." The calm voice says, "We will wait." At first light I look through the slit. A dark SUV sits on the service road angled to leave fast. 3 men stand near it. One holds a crowbar or something close to it. A woman sits on the hood with her arms crossed. None of them is rushing. All of them keep checking the gate and then the building. I move back from the window and make changes inside that buy seconds if they force entry. I move one charged battery under the bench and leave a dead one in plain view. I push the cabinet against the door to add weight and noise if the door shifts. Then, I crouch away from the door and wait for the next sound that tells me what their plan is. One of the men at the gate starts tapping the chain with a tool, not full swings, testing. The fence bodies surge toward the noise and pile against the chain link, pushing and scraping. The group steps back from the gate, then turns downhill as more dragging steps and broken sounds rise from the trees. The calm voice drops the calm. "Get in, now!" Doors open. The SUV engine starts, gravel sprays, and the vehicle backs down the road fast with no headlights. I stay where I am after the SUV drops out of sight. I keep my head below the window slit and listen to the road, the fence, the trees, and the slow pushing at the gate. More of the turned keep coming up from below, drawn by the men, the tool on the chain, the engine, all of it stacked on top of each other. I hear one body hit the fence, then another. The chain rattles in short bursts. The gate frame gives a little each time, not much, but I hear the metal working under the load. I do not rush to the door. I do not make noise inside. I count the pushes, wait through the gaps, and pay attention to what starts them and what lets them settle. By midday, the pattern is clear enough to trust. If I move in front of the slit, heads turn toward the building. If I scrape a boot on the floor near the door, the nearest ones answer with movement. If I stay low and quiet long enough, the pressure at the gate drops to a slow, restless shifting instead of a hard shove. They do not leave fast. They also do not stay locked on one spot forever without a new reason. They drift, stop, drift again, then bunch up when something draws them. The gate has become a magnet. It is not a barrier I can use anymore. It is a trap full of movement, noise, and bodies I do not want close. I pull the map back onto the bench and change the way I think about the station. The front gate and the van inside the fence were the easy version. That version is done. The side gap I cut in the chain link is my way in and out now, and it needs to stay hidden, quick to open, and quiet to close. I take a handful of short screws, a roll of wire, and 2 extra pairs of gloves from the van when I get the chance. Then I move them inside the building so I do not have to keep going back to the cargo shelves for basic things. Every trip outside will count from here on out. I am done treating this place like a job site. It is a shelter, a workbench, a lookout, and a problem that can turn on me if I get careless. I spend the rest of that day rearranging the room without dragging anything across the floor. I move the cabinet away from the door and then back again in short lifts so I can test what blocks sound and what carries. I build a small stack under the bench with the radio battery, my food, the first aid kit, and the lighter things I cannot afford to leave visible if somebody gets inside. I make a second hiding spot in the crawl alcove with 2 water bottles, the knife, the flashlight, a roll of tape, and my spare socks. I do not fool myself into thinking one hiding spot solves everything. I set 2 because if I get forced out of one corner in the dark, I need another place to reach without thinking. The wind stays up that afternoon, and it helps me more than any weapon would. The mast cables hum, loose gravel rolls against the fence. The turned at the gate keep reacting to the wind-borne sounds from the far side of the yard. I use those gusts to cover my own movement inside. When I need to open a drawer, I wait for a gust. When I need to shift the pipe brace, I wait for a gust. By evening, I have a routine that fits the place. Short moves, then stillness, then another short move. Quiet matters more than speed here. The first hard problem after water is not food or power, it is waste. I have to live inside this room, and a sealed room turns foul fast if I do not deal with that. There is an empty plastic sample bucket in a lower cabinet with a lid that still seals. I line it with a contractor bag from the van, add a layer of dry dirt I scrape from the crawl space edge, and set it in the alcove behind a hanging blanket. It is ugly work. It is also work that keeps me from opening the door at the wrong hour and turning one bad smell into a bigger mistake. When the bucket is tied off, it will have to go downhill well away from the building and well away from the creek path. I write that in my notebook too. I do not leave rules loose in my head now. Loose rules get bent when I am tired. Dark comes early behind cloud cover, and the ridge gets colder once the wind shifts north. I do not run the heater. I pull on my work jacket, zip it to the neck, and sit in the crawl with my back against the wall and my knees up. I eat half a granola bar and a spoon of peanut butter, then cap the jar and wipe the rim clean so it does not collect grit. Outside, the gate keeps making the same dull knocks and scrapes. Once, near full dark, one of the turned gets enough weight behind a shove that the chain snaps tight with a sound that makes me grip the flashlight and freeze. The post holds. The chain holds. After that, the pushing drops off again. I sleep in pieces that night, not in any stretch I could call sleep. I close my eyes for a few minutes, and then open them to check the dark, the door, the sound at the gate, the time on my watch. Sometime after midnight, I hear voices again down on the road, farther away than before. Not the dark SUV group at the fence this time. Different voices. One man, one woman, both tired, both moving fast. They do not climb all the way up. I hear them stop at the bend, argue in low bursts, then head back downhill. The turned at the gate react to the voices for a few minutes, then settle. I do not show light. I do not answer. That choice sits hard in my stomach, but opening my door in the dark for strangers would end with the same gate noise stacked on top of human noise, and no room left to control any of it. Morning gives me enough grey light to work. The gate is packed tighter now. I count 7 bodies pressed around the chain, and the fence corner nearest the latch. 2 are on their feet. 3 are slumped and pushing in uneven bursts. 2 are low to the ground and still moving, hands dragging, shoulders rolling, trying to get purchase. Their movement is clumsy but steady. They do not tire in any way that helps me. The post on the latch side has a small lean to it now. Not much, a few degrees. It was straight yesterday. I see it the second I put binoculars on it. That means I am on a clock whether I like it or not. I wait another hour for the wind to pick up again. Then I make a quick run to the van through the side gap. I open the chain link corner, slip through sideways, and keep the building between me and the gate. The van door opens with a quiet click that sounds much louder to me than it should. I grab 2 more contractor bags, a gallon jug of windshield water that I forgot was under the seat, an old rain poncho, and a short-handled shovel. I do not rummage. I do not stand with the door open. I close the van, get back through the gap, and twist the wire closed with pliers until the mesh sits tight against the post again. The windshield water is not drinking water, so I do not touch it for that. It gives me something to rinse tools with, rinse the waste bucket lid, and wipe down surfaces that collect grime. That matters more than it sounds. Dirt gets into everything up here. Dirt on a cut turns into a bigger problem than the cut itself. I set the jug by the door and mark it with tape so I do not reach for it by mistake in low light. Then, I take the shovel and dig a shallow trench under the crawl space lip, where I can tuck sealed waste bags until I can move them farther downhill in one trip. If I start carrying 1 bag at a time, I burn energy and expose myself more often. I need short windows outside, not constant errands. The next thing I tackle is power, but I do it in a smaller, quieter way than the generator. The weather station still has a small solar panel on a south-facing frame that used to keep the sensor battery topped off. It is not large enough to run the building. It is not even large enough to trust in bad weather. It can, if I am careful, feed a trickle into one battery over a long day. I take a meter, a length of wire, and my tool pouch. Then I slip out the side gap and keep low along the building wall until I reach the frame. The panel is dirty and one lead is loose where the insulation cracked. I clean the glass with a damp rag, strip the loose lead back, crimp on a connector, and run a temporary line through the wall port to the battery rack. I check voltage twice before I connect anything. The reading is weak, but it moves. That is enough to buy me a little battery life without engine noise. Clouds roll in by afternoon, and the solar trickle drops, but even a weak charge is better than dead weight on the rack. I switch the radio on for less than 2 minutes and get one clear voice on the same frequency I caught before. The woman warning people off blocked roads. She repeats the message, then adds a few new details. The bridge south of town is closed. The clinic is locked. The county line checkpoint is gone. She never says her name. She never asks for anyone else's. I listen, write it down, then shut the radio off before the battery drains lower than I can afford. Information helps. Talking back can wait until I have more power and a better reason. Late that afternoon the sky opens. Not a thunderstorm. Just cold, steady rain pushed sideways across the ridge. I move fast then, faster than I like. Since rain is the one thing I cannot store if I waste it. I take the tarp from the van, the rope from the cabinet, and the short ladder from the back wall. I rig the tarp from the building eave to a fence post inside the yard on the side away from the gate, high enough that water runs toward a corner. I set every empty container I have under that low point. Bottles, a tool tote, the cleaned sample bucket lid turned upside down to direct flow, even the coffee thermos from my van. It is not pretty. It catches water. That is the only test that counts. I stay out in the rain long enough to clear the clogged roof gutter with my gloved hand. Wet leaves and grit come out in a black, cold clump. Once the downspout starts draining, I angle a piece of split hose under it and send the flow into the biggest container I have. The turned at the gate react to me moving in the yard, but the rain and the steady drumming on metal seem to keep them from locking onto one spot. I take advantage of that. I work until my sleeves are soaked, my gloves are heavy, and the first container is half full. Then, I get back inside, strip off the wet outer layer, hang it by the crawl space, and rub my hands hard with a dry rag until I can feel my fingers again. Rainwater changes the math. I do not stop going to the creek, but I stop treating each bottle as the last clean water I will see. I let the rain run for 2 hours, Then I filter what I can through a clean shop rag into my drinking bottles and reserve the rest for washing and tool use. I do not assume roof runoff is perfect. It picks up grit and bird droppings and old dust. I boil the drinking water in a metal cup over the propane heater in short bursts with the building cracked only as much as needed for safe air. That uses fuel. It also keeps me from putting raw roof water in my stomach and losing days to it. I choose fuel over sickness. The next morning, I make my first supply run beyond the creek with a clear list in my head. County salt shed, not town center, not gas station, not storefronts. The salt shed is a simple structure north of the Ridge Road, half maintenance storage, half junk pile, and it sits away from houses. It might have containers, spill-absorbent gloves, and maybe some sealed bottled water left by snow crews. I wait until the wind picks up, slip through the side gap, and go on foot by the tree line with the empty backpack and the short shovel. I leave the van where it is. I want less noise and a smaller profile for this run. The path to the salt shed takes me across a slope above the road and through a strip of scrub where old utility poles were stacked years ago. The ground is slick from rain. Twice I catch myself on roots before I slide into open mud. I move slow and stop often enough to listen, not out of fear in the abstract, but to make sure I do not walk into an engine, voices, or one of the turned behind a blind clump of brush. I hear none of that until I get within sight of the shed. A loader sits outside the shed with one tire flat and the bucket half lowered. The side door of the shed is open 6 inches. I lie down behind a rusted drum and watch for several minutes. Nothing moves in the yard. No smoke, no engines. Then the loader cab window bumps once from inside. A shape shifts behind the dirty glass. I raise the binoculars and see a man in county orange slumped in the seat, face turned down, one arm caught between his body and the wheel. He moves in short jerks that make the seat shake. He does not get out. He does not call. I stay clear of the loader and go to the shed wall instead. Inside the shed, the smell of wet concrete and spilled salt hits first. Shelves line one wall, and half the bins have been dug through. Somebody got here before me and took obvious things. They left what was heavy, ugly, or easy to miss. I find a box of heavy-duty trash bags, a bag of clay absorbent for oil spills, 2 empty 5-gallon water jugs, a box of nitrile gloves, a hand siphon pump, and a roll of caution tape. I take all of it. In the back office fridge, the power is off and the food is done. I leave that alone. In a locker, I find a spare rain jacket that fits close enough and a knit cap with the county logo. I take those too. I am almost out the side door when the loader cab window bumps again, louder this time. The man in the loader has shifted enough that his head knocks the glass. Then the door latch clicks and the cab door swings out a few inches. He pitches against it and slides halfway through, caught by the seatbelt across one leg. That belt saves me in that moment. It holds him in the doorway while his upper body hangs, and his hands claw at the air. I back away at once, shoulder the pack, and leave the yard without trying to be clever. One trapped body can become one free body in the time it takes me to stare too long. Back at the station, I bring the new gear in through the side gap one piece at a time. The 5-gallon jugs go under the bench. The clay absorbent goes beside the waste bucket. It makes that job cleaner, and gives me a way to dry the floor if I spill anything. The gloves go into the cabinet. The hand siphon pump matters most. Fuel in cans and tanks is only useful if I can move it without pouring half of it on the ground. I clean the pump hose with boiled water and soap, then coil it in a clean bag. I do not want dirt in a fuel line any more than I want it in my drinking cup. That evening, I answer the radio for the first time. I wait until noon sun has put what little charge it can into the battery, switch the radio on, listen for the woman's repeated warning, then key the mic for one short burst. I do not give my name. I say only that the ridge west of town is blocked at the main road, that the dark SUV group is active, and that the county line checkpoint is empty on my side too. My voice sounds dry and rough in my own ears. I release the mic right away. A few seconds later, the woman answers. Her voice is older than I expected, maybe late 30s or 40s, calm in a way that sounds earned. She says she copied the message, that she is operating from an old volunteer station north of the river, and that she will keep noon and dusk radio windows. She does not ask for more, and I do not offer more. Having a radio voice out there changes the day without making it easier. I stop feeling cut off from the whole county, but I also know information can carry in both directions. At dusk, another voice breaks into the same frequency. Male, smooth. He says there is food and safe beds at a church gym south of the Mill Road. He says people should announce names and numbers before coming in so they can prepare space. I do not answer. The woman from the volunteer station does not answer either. The next day, I watch the lower road through binoculars and see the same dark SUV creeping along a side route where it has no reason to be. That is enough for me. The church call was bait. From then on, I keep my radio windows short and my answers shorter. My days narrow into chores. Morning light means checking the gate lean, checking the side gap wire, checking the rain catchment, checking the battery voltage. Then I deal with water, eat a small amount, and write the condition of each item in the notebook so I stop guessing and start knowing. Midday, if the sky is clear enough, I let the solar trickle work and use the radio for a few minutes. If clouds stay thick, I save the battery and keep the set dark. Afternoon is for moving one problem forward. Never three. 1. Fix a leak, sort gear, move waste, clean a cut, patch clothing. If I try to do too much, I get sloppy. And sloppy has a way of showing up a day later when the cost is higher. Food drops fast even when I ration hard. The beans last 2 evenings. The tuna stretches across 2 meals. Granola bars disappear in halves, then quarters. Peanut butter becomes the backbone, a spoonful at a time. I go looking for calories on the 4th morning after the SUV, not in town, but at the highway pull-off maintenance yard where crews used to keep cones, patch mix, and boxed supplies. I decide to use the van for that trip. I need carrying space for this one, and the yard is far enough that coming back on foot with any decent load would cost me half a day and half my legs. Getting the van out is harder than the drive itself. I cannot use the main gate, so I unload enough weight from the side fence corner to widen the opening, and then work the van around the inside of the fence inch by inch, keeping the building between me and the gate cluster. The side mirror folds in. The rear tire rubs chain link. Metal whispers against paint. Twice I stop with the engine idling and wait for the turn to react elsewhere before I move another foot. When the van finally noses through the widened corner and onto the rough ground outside the fence, I feel the ground drop away on one side, and for a second I think I am going to slide the whole vehicle into the ditch. I keep the wheel straight, ease off, and let it settle. Then I crawl the van into the trees, away from the building, and circle down the slope through an old maintenance track I almost forgot was there. The maintenance yard sits behind a chain-link perimeter with one rolling gate half open. 3 pickup trucks are parked in the lot. 2 are empty. One has a driver door open and nobody around it. I kill the van behind a stack of cracked concrete culvert sections and watch for a long while. Wind moves loose plastic. A sheet of plywood bangs somewhere in the yard. No voices. Then a man walks out from the rear garage carrying a red can, sees one of the parked trucks, and starts toward it fast. He is not one of the turned. His pace is clean and purposeful. Another man follows him from the garage with an armload of boxed goods. Both get into the truck and leave through the open gate without checking the back lot. I wait until their engine fades before I move. Inside the garage, the first shelves are cleaned out, but the back storage room still has things nobody wanted to carry far. A box of oatmeal packets, a carton of canned vegetable soup, 3 packages of salted crackers, a jar of instant coffee, a roll of butyl roof tape, a small toolbox with mixed fasteners, and 2 old marine batteries on a charger that has been dead since the grid dropped. I take the food, the tape, the toolbox, and 1 battery. The battery is heavy enough to punish my back all the way to the van, and I almost leave it after the first lift. I take it anyway. 1 more usable battery means more radio time, more light in short controlled bursts, and less pressure to run the generator. I also find a locked fuel cage in the rear lean-to. The padlock is thick, but the hasp is mounted to old wood. I work the flat bar behind it and pry until the screws tear free of the post. Inside are 4 gas cans. 2 are empty. 1 smells stale and varnished. 1 is half full and not as old. I filter that fuel through a clean rag into my own can, using the siphon pump, Then I mark the can mixed with tape so I remember it may run rough. Bad fuel is better than no fuel, but only if I treat it with caution. I close the cage back up the best I can, not to protect it, only to make it look untouched to the next person who peeks in from the lot. On the way back to the van, I hear an engine where there was none a minute before. I freeze behind the rear wheel of a grader and look through the axle space. A different pickup rolls through the open gate. 2 men in the cab, one looking at the garage doors as he drives. I stay crouched with my shoulder against rubber and rusted steel, while the truck idles 20 yards away. The passenger jumps out, glances at the front office, then points toward the main garage. He has a crowbar in one hand. I do not wait to see whether he checks the back lot. I slide under the grader frame, crawl through cold grease and grit, and come up behind the culvert stack where I left my van. I start it only when the wind gusts and the sheet of plywood slams again. Then I ease down slope through brush instead of using the yard gate at all. Back at the station, I do not bring the van inside the fence. That part of my routine is over now. I hide the van in a shallow cut on the tree side of the ridge, 10 minutes from the building on foot, under branches, and an old camo net I find in a county crate. It is not invisible. It is enough to break the shape and kill the shine. I remove the most valuable things from it anyway. Tools, food, the mixed fuel, the extra battery, spare clothing, and the first aid bag. If someone finds the van later, losing it will hurt less if I have already taken its guts out. The mixed fuel proves exactly as difficult as I expected. The first time I run the generator with it, the engine starts, coughs, stumbles and surges every few seconds. I shut it down after less than a minute and pull the carburetor bowl with my tools spread on a towel under the bench. Old varnish and dirt sit in the bottom in a sticky amber film. I clean the bowl with fresh rag strips and a little of the windshield fluid on the outside only. Then I wipe the inside with dry cloth and clear the jet carefully with wire from a twist tie. The smallest spring tries to jump away when I loosen one screw, and I spend 5 full minutes on my knees with the flashlight looking for it on the concrete. When I find it under the bench leg, I sit back and force myself to slow down before I put everything back together. One rushed screw threads crooked and ruins the whole job. After the cleaning, the generator runs smoother, though not clean. I use it only when wind is high enough to cover the sound, or rain is hitting the roof hard enough to blur it. Even then, I limit it to short charges, quick boils, and one light in the back corner when I need both hands for careful work. My world gets smaller and more measured every day. I start counting fuel by finger width in the can, counting oatmeal packets, counting matches, counting clean rags. Nothing here is endless, and every item changes jobs over time. The rain jacket becomes a ground sheet when I am not wearing it. The caution tape becomes tie-off strips. The county knit cap becomes a filter wrap around the fuel funnel. The gate lean gets worse on the 6th day after the SUV. Not from one big shove, from constant small pressure, hour after hour, plus weather working the soil around the post. The chain stays closed. The post base loosens. By noon, I can see a finger-width gap at the concrete collar where the earth has shifted. I do not have enough strength, noise cover, or empty yard to shore it up from the outside. Even if I did, I would have to work right beside the packed bodies on the gate. That is not going to happen. I change the plan instead. I move every useful thing out of the generator shed and into the building. The fuel, the extension cords, the oil, the tool roll, the funnel, the spare spark plug. If the gate comes loose and the yard fills, I lose the shed, not the supplies. I also start making the station look empty from the outside. No tarp left up after rain. No visible containers by the wall. No tools leaning outside. I tuck everything inside or under gravel. I cover the window slit from the inside with a darker strip of cloth that I can peel back only when I need to look. During the day, I stop standing at the slit at all if the sun is behind me and could flash off the glass. The dark SUV group saw enough once. I have no reason to remind anybody this place is occupied. On the 7th morning, while I am carrying a tied waste bag down to the trench spot beyond the tree line, I hear someone whistling on the lower road. Not a tune. 2 short blasts, a pause, then 2 more. It is not a bird. It is a signal between people. I lower the bag behind a stump and get flat in wet brush. A pair comes up the road on foot. A middle-aged woman in a yellow rain shell and an older man with a limp. The woman keeps looking at the ridgetop. The man carries a grocery tote and stops twice to lean on his knee. Neither one is one of the turned. Neither one is moving like the dark SUV crew either. They look worn out and cautious. The woman spots one of the bodies at the gate and pulls up hard. She says something low to the man. He shakes his head and points to his mouth. I stay hidden and watch what they do without me. The woman does not come to the gate. She sees the blocked entrance, scans the fence, and then backs up to the road shoulder. The man sets the tote down and takes out a cardboard sign with thick marker writing on it. He holds it up toward the station. Water or meds is all it says. He lowers the sign after a few seconds and waits. He does not shout. The woman watches the trees more than the building. That choice keeps me from dismissing them right away. People who watch the trees are paying attention to the right danger. I do not reveal myself. I move in a low circle through brush, come up behind the road ditch 30 yards downhill from them, and lay one sealed bottle of boiled rainwater and a strip of bandage wrap beside a culvert mouth where they will see it if they search the shoulder. Then, I ease back the way I came. A few minutes later, the woman spots the bottle, checks the ditch, then grabs it and the wrap fast. She looks upslope once, not at the building, more at the tree line. She nods once to nobody I can see. Then she and the man head downhill without pushing their luck. That exchange gives me a rule I can live with. I can help at a distance if I control the place, the time, and the amount. From then on, I set a dead drop point at the culvert shoulder when I have anything to spare, which is not often. Half a bottle, a strip of bandage, 2 oatmeal packets in a tied bag. Never enough to draw a crowd, never enough to turn me into the answer for anybody else's whole day. If something is taken, I note it. If it sits untouched too long, I stop using the drop for a day or two. I do not leave a schedule. Schedules create habits, and habits are easy for the wrong people to learn. Cold sinks deeper into the ridge at night as the weather turns. My hands crack across the knuckles from wet work and cold air, and every split in the skin feels like a warning. I clean them with warm water from the cup when I can spare the fuel, dry them well, and wrap the worst spots with tape before I put gloves back on. The skin at my heels softens from damp socks and then rubs raw from hiking. That kind of pain sounds small until it changes the way I place a foot, and then one bad step on a wet slope can put me on the ground in open view with a full pack on my back. I start drying socks by the heater in short, careful windows, and sleeping with one pair tucked under my shirt so body warmth finishes the job. The woman on the radio gives her name on the 8th day. Leah, no last name. She says the volunteer station has 2 people now, herself and an older man who can still pump water by hand from a backup line in the bay floor. She says the river road is full of abandoned cars, and the paper mill yard has been stripped. She says a few people are setting up in farm outbuildings north of the county line, but nothing holds for long once noise and smoke build up. I tell her little. Ridge west of town, rain catchment working, main road not safe, dark SUV active, that is all. We do not become friends over the radio. We become 2 voices sharing facts in tight windows. That is safer and cleaner. On the 9th afternoon, the dark SUV returns. I do not hear the engine first. I see the reflection through trees while I am looking down from the ridge with the binoculars. The vehicle stops farther down this time, out of direct line with the gate, and one man gets out alone. He moves through the trees on foot, circling upslope instead of coming by the road. That makes him more dangerous than before. He is not testing the obvious path anymore. He is thinking. I stay inside the building, no light, no movement at the slit, and watch the side wall through a crack in the board. The man reaches the fence on the tree side, studies it, then puts 2 fingers on the wire where my hidden gap is. He does not find the seam. He moves on. A minute later, he reaches the rear corner and starts pressing on the mesh with his shoulder. I do not wait for him to work loose the wrong section and discover he has options. I take a long screwdriver, slip it between the inner wall boards near the rear corner, and scrape it slowly along the metal conduit inside. The sound rings through the opposite side of the building, closer to the main gate and farther from him. He stops. I scrape once more, then go still. The man shifts toward the false sound, moving along the outer wall. He stands there for a long count, listening. Then I hear him back off through wet brush. He does not speak. I do not either. 10 minutes later, the SUV engine turns over and fades downhill. From then on, I know for sure I am not only hiding from the turned, I am hiding from men who are trying to think around me. A day later, the weather does half of that work for them. The wind builds hard after noon, and one of the sensor arms high on the mast comes loose at the bracket. I hear the first bang on metal and think somebody is striking the fence with a pipe. Then it bangs again above me. Then again, irregular, hard enough to shake the wall mount where the cable runs inside. I look out through the roof edge gap and see the arm swinging loose, cable whipping, banging the mast with every stronger gust. That sound will carry. It will pull anything within earshot that can still respond to sound. I have no choice. I grab the ladder, a ratchet strap, gloves, and the harness belt left hanging in the shed gear. Then I go outside into the wind. Climbing in those gusts is bad work. The ladder feet skid once on wet gravel before I kick stones around them and reset. I keep 3 points of contact the whole way and clip the belt to the mast rung before I put a hand on the loose arm. The arm slams hard the first time I catch it and nearly takes my glove off. I pin it against the mast with both forearms, loop the ratchet strap around the bracket twice, and cinch until the handle bites into my palm. The cable is frayed near the end, and one connector is gone. I cut the cable loose with my knife so it stops whipping. The second I do, the yard goes quieter, and I hear movement I do not want down by the gate. The turned have answered the banging. More of them are pushing into the chain now. I climb down faster than I climbed up, step off the last rung, and feel my right boot slide on wet stone. I go down hard on one knee and one hand. The knee slams gravel. The palm scrapes across a rough patch where the rain washed fines away and left broken stone. Pain comes fast and simple. I look at the hand first. The glove is torn. Skin is open across the heel of the palm and one finger joint. Not deep, but enough to bleed. I get inside at once, lock, brace, strip the glove, and wash the hand with boiled water cooled enough to use and plain soap. Dirt comes out black into the basin. I rinse until the water runs clear, pat dry with a clean cloth, and wrap the palm with gauze and tape tight enough to hold. Then I deal with the knee. The pants are ripped. The skin underneath is scraped raw and starting to stiffen. I clean that too. Neither injury ends me. Both will slow every move I make for days. The mast repair stops the banging, but the damage is done. More turned gather at the gate through the evening. Their pressure shifts the post farther. After dark, I hear the base grind in the dirt with a dry, rough sound each time the weight bunches and pushes. I do not sleep much. Every few minutes I check the brace, the hidden gear, the side gap wire, the radio battery, the hand wrap. The station feels smaller that night, not from the walls, but from how many angles I now have to consider before I move 1 foot. The next morning the gate has not failed, but it is close enough that I change the sight again. I drain the remaining usable fuel from the generator into smaller cans so I can move it by hand. I carry the cans, the better tools, the food, and the main battery in 2 trips through the side gap to a second cache. I start in the trees above the hidden van. It is only a shallow scrape under roots lined with contractor bags and covered with branches, but it gives me a fallback if the building gets rushed or forced. I do not move everything. I move enough that losing the station in 1 bad hour would not end the whole line of my days. That is what I am building now, not safety, but layers. The storm that follows hits late and runs into the night. Cold rain first, then sleet mixed in. The yard turns into wet gravel and slush. Water runs under the door, and I throw clay absorbent down in a line to keep the floor from turning slick. The turned at the gate keep pressing into the weather as if it means nothing to them. A little after dark, the gatepost finally slips enough that the chain goes slack for 1 second between shoves. Then the whole latch side lurches inward a foot. Not open, not fully down. Enough. Enough for the first body to wedge through the gap sideways and fall into the yard. 2 more force in behind it in the next minute, scraping off the bent post as they come. I kill every light, even the little battery lamp in the back corner, and crouch in the crawl with the flashlight off in my hand. Outside, the 3 that made it through do not rush the door. They move toward the last place they had consistent sound and motion, The gate, the fence, the side of the building where I climbed earlier. One bumps the generator shed. Another drags along the wall, hands rasping the siding. The third stops near the corner where the rain barrel used to sit and keeps turning its head from the wall to the fence and back again. I hold still and wait for each sound to tell me where each body is. Moving in the dark with 3 of them in the yard is worse than waiting if I cannot improve my odds with the move. The weather gives me one chance. A loose equipment panel I stacked under the bench earlier starts rattling from the draft under the door. I catch it before it clatters inside, tie a rope to one corner, and crawl to the rear wall where the old cable port opens low. The port is barely wide enough after I pull the seal. I feed the rope through and ease the panel out into the storm on the far side of the building, the side opposite my hidden gap. Then I let it go. The wind catches the panel, flips it once, and it slams down the slope outside the fence with a hard metal crack, followed by scraping and bouncing through brush. All 3 yard bodies answer that sound at once. I hear feet drag, shoulders hit chain link, and one heavy fall near the rear fence. I do not waste the moment. I grab the go bag I packed days ago, the main battery, and 2 water bottles. Then I ease the side corner wire loose from the inside. One of the yard bodies is still too close for comfort, but the storm noise and the panel down the slope keep pulling attention away from the door. I slip through the gap, turn sideways so the battery clears, and get out to the tree line. Once I am outside the fence, I do not run downhill in the open. I move along the building shadow, then into brush, and keep going toward the hidden van cut until the sounds from the yard drop behind the sleet and wind. I spend that night in the van, seat pushed back, coat zipped tight, battery and bag on the floorboard, listening to the storm hit the roof and the branches above. I do not try to sleep much. I keep the key in my pocket, not in the ignition, and crack the window only when the glass fogs enough that I lose sight of the slope above the hood. The van smells like wet cloth, cold metal, and the old dust in the vents. It is cramped, but it keeps the weather off and gives me one more door between me and the open dark. I eat dry crackers in small bites and drink half a bottle of water. I do not touch the engine. I do not show headlights. The only light I use is the flashlight cupped under my jacket for a few seconds at a time. At dawn, the storm breaks into lighter rain. I climb back toward the station on foot first, leaving the van hidden until I know what I am walking into. The main gate is bent inward and hanging off the latch side. The yard is torn up with tracks in the slush and one fence panel is folded low, where pressure and wind worked it together. I count 4 bodies in the yard and more outside the fence, but many of them have drifted down slope during the night after the panel noise and the storm scatter. The building door is scratched and smeared with mud at knee height. It is still shut, the brace held. That buys me enough to use the place, but the image is clear now. The station cannot be defended at the gate. The yard is no longer a safe outer buffer. It is open ground that can fill without warning. I spend the next 3 hours not on drama, but on dirty practical work. I do not try to clear the whole yard. I do not try to rebuild the gate. I cut loose the bent gate panel and drag it, little by little, with the rope and the van bumper later, until it lies flat outside the main opening and blocks the easiest path just enough to slow movement. Not stop it, slow it. I retie the side gap higher and tighter, so only someone looking hard at that exact spot would notice the repair. I move the solar panel lead to a safer route along the wall, where storm debris will not catch it. I nail a second board strip over the lower cable port inside, so I can still feed a rope or wire through without leaving a wide opening. By the time I am done, my wrapped palm is wet through, and my knee has stiffened enough that each squat and stand comes with a hard pull up the thigh. From that point on, the station changes shape in my head. It is not a fortress in the way I thought on the first day. It is not a place where I can hold a front entrance, run a generator in the shed, and think the fence buys me safety. It becomes something narrower and more useful. Water catchment point, radio point, dry workbench, hidden food and battery shelter. A place I can use if I keep it quiet, keep it dark, and keep my exit open. The fewer signs I leave that anybody is using it, the longer it helps me. The second I turn it into a bright, noisy camp, I draw the same kind of attention that broke the gate. Life settles into a slower routine after the storm, but it does not get easier. Each day starts with a path check between the hidden van and the station. I move a small rock at 2 points along the brush trail before dark and look to see if it was kicked out of place by morning. I brush over my own footprints if the ground is soft. I keep my water work early, before the wind dies, and before other people start moving. I cook only when the sky is bad enough to hide a little scent and sound. When I eat oatmeal, I use less water and stir longer. When I eat soup, I save the can and wash it clean for screws, bandage scraps, or grease strips from repair jobs. Nothing goes in the trash unless it can do no second job. I start making small runs to nearby empty places that do not sit on main roads. A hunting cabin with a padlocked shed half a mile north gives me lamp oil I do not use for flame, but keep as cleaning solvent for metal parts, a box of old nails, and 2 wool blankets that smell of mildew until I air them out in wind. A ranger trailer near the trailhead gives me paper towels, 1 unopened bag of rice, and a half-used bottle of dish soap. In each place I spend more time listening than taking. I never stay long enough to get comfortable. Open a drawer, check under the sink, scan the floor, scan the windows, leave. That becomes the rule. On one of those runs, I find a dog at the edge of the trail parking lot, lean and muddy, standing beside a truck with both rear doors open. The dog watches me but does not come close. There is a collar, no tag. The dog circles the truck, looks inside, then looks at me again. I do not kneel. I do not call it over. I cannot feed another living thing on my food. I cannot have barking near the station. I take 1 slow step back and angle away from the lot. The dog watches me leave and stays with the truck. I think about it for the rest of the climb back, then force my attention to the trail, the wind, and the next bend. Thinking about what I cannot carry does not change what I can carry. Leah's radio windows keep me oriented to the wider county without pulling me into long talk. Some days all we trade is 1 line each. North Bridge still blocked. A barn fire off Miller Road. No movement at the clinic. Strangers near the quarry. Once she tells me she heard organized traffic on a state channel from 2 counties over, then nothing after that. Once I tell her the dark SUV group is using false calls for supplies and shelter. She answers with 1 dry "copied" and moves on. Neither of us asks the other to come over, send help, or join up. That restraint is part of what makes the contact useful. A voice that does not ask for more than facts is a voice I can keep using. The dark SUV crew tests the ridge 1 more time about 2 weeks after the gate failed. I am not inside the building when it happens. I am in the trees above the station, crouched behind wet brush with a fuel can in my hand, on my way back from the van cache. I hear boots on gravel and hold where I am. 2 men come up through the broken main gate and walk the yard with the lazy confidence of men who think they have found an empty place. 1 kicks the dead generator shed door, the other tries the building door. Both speak in low voices that the wind breaks apart, but I catch enough to know they think whoever was here left in the storm. That is the exact impression I wanted. They do not see the side gap. They do not see the hidden tarp hooks, the battery lead tucked flat along the wall, or the gear under the bench. They see a wrecked yard, a dead station, and no obvious reward. Then one of the men tries to force the building door with the crowbar. He pries once, gets a little flex, and goes for a second pull. The sound carries farther than he expects. 2 turned that have been drifting below the ridge path answer, and start up through the broken gate. The man with the crowbar hears them late, looks over his shoulder, and backs off from the door. The other man swears, points downhill, and both head out the way they came. One of them glances into the trees where I am hidden, and I flatten lower against the wet ground and stop breathing for a count of 3. He looks past me and keeps moving. When they leave, they take nothing. I wait another 20 minutes before I go near the building. That 1 visit settles my last argument with myself about the station. If strangers think it is empty, damaged, and not worth the trouble, I get more days out of it. If they think it is a defended hold with fuel, food, and power, they come back with patience and tools, so I lean into the first version. I stop boiling water at the building during clear weather, and do that near the hidden van cut behind a dirt rise where less can be seen. I keep the station dark except for the shortest necessary work. I bring no more vehicles near the fence. The building becomes quiet storage and maintenance space. My visible life moves into the folds of the ridge where brush, bad footing, and poor sightlines work in my favor. The days that follow are plain and hard in ways that never look dramatic from the outside. I carry water up the slope 2 jugs at a time and stop halfway to rest the handles on a stump, not on the ground, so dirt stays out of the threads. I wash one shirt while wearing the other and plan for weather while it dries. I boil rice in small batches and save the starchy water to wipe tools and cut dust on the floor. I scrape rust off a hinge and oil it with a rag dipped in a few drops so the door opens quieter next time. I split one long repair into 3 shorter ones when my hand starts shaking from strain and the screwdriver slips. Small restraint keeps larger damage from starting. The turn do not disappear. Some drift off. Some wander in from other roads. A few get hung up on the broken gate or the bent fence and stay there for hours, sometimes longer, until a sound pulls them another direction. I stop thinking of the station in terms of a total clear or a total breach. It is a tide line. Bodies gather, thin, gather again. I do not try to fix the whole pattern. I work around it. If the yard is active, I use the van cache and stay away until dark or rain. If the yard is quiet, I slip in, do one task, and slip out. The same holds for people. When I see movement on the lower road, I go silent, break my outline, and let the road belong to someone else until it passes. By the 3rd week, the county starts to look less like a place waiting for a response and more like a place settling into its own rough rules. Smoke columns are fewer, not from improvement, but from fewer easy things left to burn, and fewer people wasting fuel to do it. Roads are more open in some spots after the first panicked traffic has been abandoned and stripped, then pushed aside by heavier vehicles. Other roads are worse where wrecks, bodies, and scavengers have built choke points. The radio gets quieter overall, which tells me less about safety than any cheerful statement ever could. When whole areas stop speaking, it means something ended there, or something settled there that makes speaking a bad idea. I do not count days on the calendar after a while. I count through maintenance cycles. When the roof tape needs another press. When the battery voltage sags below the mark I drew on the meter face. When the hand wrap on my palm can finally come off and the skin underneath is pink and tight instead of split. When the knee lets me step down off a rock without that sharp catch on the outside. Those are the markers that matter now. They tell me whether I can carry more, climb higher, wait longer, or need to cut the day short and keep myself from turning a minor injury into the thing that ends my options. One cold morning with clear sky after a night frost, I stand in the brush above the station and look at the building through the branches. The boards over the window are dark with old rain. The bent gate leans inward. The mast has one sensor arm strapped down tight where I tied it weeks ago. From a distance it looks dead, tired, and mostly useless. That look is doing work for me. I shift my pack, head down to the side gap, and go inside to check the battery and the catchment jugs. The place smells like cold metal, damp wood, and the faint soap I use on the floor. It is not comfortable. It is mine, for as long as I can keep it quiet. At noon, Leah's voice comes across the radio, steady through a little static. She says first snow is showing in the North Hills. She says the volunteer station hand pump is slowing, and she may need to move before it freezes hard. I tell her the ridge rain catchment is holding, and the creek is running low, but clean enough after boiling. She does not ask where the ridge is. I do not offer to guide her in. We both know that any move across county roads this far in would need more than a voice and a decent intention. We exchange the facts we can use and leave the rest where it is. That afternoon, I carry 2 filled jugs from the creek, retie the tarp line before the next wind, and set out one small dead drop package at the culvert. Half a bottle of clean water, a bandage roll, and 2 oatmeal packets. Then I climb back to the station before dusk, seal the side gap, and sit on the floor with the notebook open on my knee. I mark the fuel depth in words, the food left in rough counts, the battery level, the weather, the gate condition, and the radio times. After that, I close the notebook, put it under the bench, and start sorting screws by size under the dim battery lamp, one careful handful at a time, while the ridge goes dark outside and the first hard cold of the season settles over the metal roof. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. If you want to help this channel grow, you can leave a like, subscribe, or share your thoughts below. I read them all. This is Jack's Nightmares, signing off.